More than 100 eunuchs lay on the floor when they felt that extremely strong energy, causing everyone to be confused and suddenly exclaim, "I can't move, what the hell is going on?" Even General Manager Lim, who has great internal strength, has difficulty moving. "Sir, we cannot give in like this." Elder Kong Tong reminded his subordinates, "Don't do anything, just observe, because the person who did it is one of the 5 great masters. This is not something that just anyone can do. That unknown person is releasing terrible energy." Taoist Master Chung Su, a longtime elder of the righteous sect, he couldn't believe his eyes when he thought, just because he doesn't overwhelm us doesn't mean we can't feel his powerful aura. Is there really someone who can control his aura like that? They thought that that young man in his 20s was at least an expert in transformation. But to become as strong as one of the 5 great masters was unbelievable. If that stranger was on par with the 5 great masters, would he be on par with the Northern Bin Dao guest? The energy was causing the eunuchs to uncontrollably lower their heads to the floor and they couldn't even keep their balance. No way. More shocking than Ju Ti-yoon was also moaning with her face glued to the floor, screaming for help from Kong Lim. Kong Lim calmed down when he finally found the person who was emitting a source of light. That powerful energy. Only the eunuchs of the East Factory were overwhelmed by his huge aura. Except for Kong Tong. Why were the soldiers of the Cam Yi Guard still safe and sound? Could it be? Are on the same side? Thinking back, I was so focused on catching the prince that I didn't have time to notice the obvious bald guy. He was using fire energy. Maybe he drank the mascot's blood but still alive even though he was just a human being. General Manager Lim looked towards the direction of the Holy King Ju Tae-geum and thought that it was the prince who colluded with these people. And the prince saw that General Nam Gun was injured. In order to protect him, he shouted, "Yin Nam Gun, are you okay? Even if they are men from the Imperial Guard. It doesn't matter. I have to survive and report the news to the palace. That's the only way to overthrow him. Although his aura is very strong, he cannot completely defeat me. If he still uses all his strength, he can jump to a place high enough and unreachable." Manager Lim thought that, even if the person in front of him could make 100 eunuchs kneel, he wouldn't be able to do anything when attacked by him. The eunuchs could regain control of their bodies in a few seconds. They could make the most of every second because the guy in front of them was a monster. Manager Lim still had enough energy and jumped into the air. While floating, he reached into his sleeve and brought out a pile of needles. Although it consumes a lot of internal energy, it is extremely powerful. No matter how terrible a monster is, it cannot stop this thing. Breaking thousands of wounds is a martial art created by humans. Head of the I.M. Chung Hua workshop. And inspired by the Tang dynasty's celestial sects. Those sects are extremely famous for their hidden weapons and poisons, which are among the masterclasses of the anemone flower classic. Destroying the spear is used to make the user's aura spread out like a wave. While the needles from his right hand are aimed at Yo Woon, the needles in his left hand fly towards the Holy King Ju Tae-geum. General Nam Gun was seriously injured, so he could only hug the Holy King Ju Tae-geum and rush out as a shield. With this attack, it seems that General Lim will have enough time to escape with him. Ju Ti-yoon. But things don't always go according to plan. A whirlwind surrounded the 2 victims and the needles were whirled high into the air and fell to the ground. Is that this time the Great Protector has actually taken action? But only because the demon sect leader has transmitted the sound, asking to protect the Holy King Ju Tae-geum. Not only that, Hyo Bong with his bald head was grimacing and using fire as a shield. Because he had just mastered this mythical power, it was difficult to maintain it for long. Hyo Bong inherently has a lot of positive energy, so it's tiring to regulate the hot internal energy flowing inside him. But just as he was about to be burned by his own fire, another, more intense fire covered the whole thing. Hyo Bong shouted in admiration because the great elder Run Jang had appeared to help. Her eyes became clear looking at her junior and said, "You are really difficult to please. Already if you don't control your internal energy well, don't let your guard down." Hyo Bong agreed when he saw that, but he was also a little confused. Why did the 200-year-old beauty look at him with such tales? Beyond the fire of a magical beast god? Turns out, in the heavenly demon god sect, There is a woman who also uses fire. The evil protector who is said to be the master of fire. The Lord of Heat and also the former president of the demon temple appeared and exclaimed, "Why did you let such a precious witness fall into danger?" Taoist Master Chung Su felt very lucky to have these people as allies. Not members of Kongtong who were considered dead. He began to observe the evil guardian Dharma and guessed that he was in the state of transformation. But then he thought again that he was at the initial, ultimate level. But not only this person. Other people have also reached the ultimate realm of transformation and they are all great masters. However, there is also a question that everyone wants to know. Which is why the experts gathered together in the same place in the Guardian Temple. And so he immediately understood the problem and looked straight at Yo Woon. A young man with a pale white face and long flowing hair who was releasing majestic energy in the middle hall like a demon god. That person is none other than the leader of the great demon god sect that is a mystery to the remaining three forces, including the evil extreme knife sect and the righteous sect. This seems to be like it wasn't a dream. The nightmare wouldn't be so strange if everyone was massacred. When that thought flashed through his mind, General Manager Lim trembled in unbelievable panic. Right after the general, despite Lim performing his strongest secret technique, he still could not get closer to the king, let alone Yo Woon, which was an impossible task. Unless that person was an experienced person. Experience and ability to control energy with very high precision. However, no one knows that the male protagonist possesses NANO, regardless of his incredible internal strength. So perhaps he has superior intelligence. Why is it possible to control everything in sight like this? NANO activated the control system on the needle according to the user's command and all shot back to the place of the person who hit. The pair Yo Woon's eyes widened, quickly creating targets and all aimed at General Manager Lim. The needles stopped in midair spinning around the leader and he just waved his hand. The old Manager Lim started to get scared and tried to move. If he didn't hurry he would die. He was used to using that secret technique to attack others. But he had never experienced the feeling of resisting his own secret technique. More than 100 needles were flying backwards, at twice the speed that General Manager Lim had thrown. To counter what he was about to receive, he immediately used the spear and 8 scriptures. Up until now, that sinister Manager Lim still thought that if Yo Woon could do it, I could do even more. Very quickly dozens of hidden weapons were suppressed and then fell to the ground like rain, and the opportunity was here. General Manager Lim thought, even if it is a monster, it is the limit. The limitation of internal strength is basic. So the old man has to jump in and fight. All I need to do is use internal attacks to make him confused. Then take advantage of the chaos and escape this place. But that's just a theory, and in reality the opponent is the leader of the demon sect. You don't know when to give up, right? As soon as he got close, just a few meters away, General Manager Lim suddenly felt pain in his right arm. He rolled his eyes and tried to endure the pain because a part of his body below was gone, accompanied by an endless stream of internal energy that made him helpless. Thuk fell hard at Yo Woon's feet. Even if a person is a great master, how can he have so many internal attacks to perform many moves? If no one answers the general manager, then Yo Woon request, please give up, because trying again won't work. He felt embarrassed by these words and regretted that he had only achieved his intention a little while later. I was about to stand up to reason when suddenly my left arm suddenly fell to the ground. The leader of the heavenly demon god sect is obviously a person who doesn't talk much and rarely knows how to be polite. Without being allowed to stand up and talked, if that person tried to do it, the outcome would be very miserable. General Manager Lim's body was filled with pain everywhere. He looked at the young expert with angry eyes. The other eunuchs lying on the ground didn't believe it either. Why did my boss lose so easily? He was one of the 3 palace masters, so he wasn't any worse than the great masters. The old man cleared his throat, raised his head to look at him and said with red eyes, "You bastard, who are you to dare to block my path?" Yo Woon just coldly looked at Manager Lim and replied that he was the owner of the place he was planning to blame. He couldn't understand the meaning of those words, until a completely impossible thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Could it be that you are the leader of the demon sect? I guess now you've realized the stupid things you've done up until now. It seems you must know your outcome, right? Hearing that, General Manager Lim shouted angrily, "I am an official of the great empire. Even if you are the father of the demon cult leader, it won't help." Yo Woon had a headache from this type of thing, so he used his hand to squeeze Manager Lim's mouth so he could continue his classy performance. Even before he finished speaking, the sword quickly pierced his neck and one of the sect master's hands burned the other head. So suddenly that General Manager Lim didn't even have time to realize what had just happened to him and his juniors who were lying on the floor groaning. The whispers and screams of the eunuchs of the Eastern Workshop made the hall feel like it was about to explode. Not a single person from the Eastern Workshop dared to stand up to avenge their General Manager Lim. Everyone could only look helplessly at the broken body covered in blood with the missing head and exclaim, "Oh my gosh!" No one in the palace could have imagined that General Manager Lim, a master in the palace, would be like that, was killed. Even Prince Ju Tae Guillaume couldn't help but be shocked. He punished without any means but dared to bloodily kill a palace official. Could it be that he no longer remembered the inviolability between mandarins and martial artists or what? Yo Woon is currently at the royal palace, which is the center of the empire. Prince Ju Tae Guillaume thought that, no matter how arrogant the divine demon religion is, they will not killing a martial arts official so easily. Taoist Master Chung Su, one of the longtime members of the Dai Min Martial Arts Alliance, had a confused look on his face. This person's martial arts position was so powerful. There is no longer any doubt. That is definitely the leader of the demon sect. The elders heard about the new leader of the demon sect through the advisors who were sent to the demon sect as envoys and also called him already a little sect leader. He had just climbed to the position of demon sect leader. But the Martial Arts Alliance still only thought of him as a mischievous child. Everything he heard from the meeting seemed to be lies, making excuses for the incompetence of the Murum Alliance that had reached 100.000 mountains. This person was not a child but as if an old monster. That person isn't a growing emugi, but a dragon that has reached maturity. Yuan Shi Tianjun immediately transmitted the sound to one of the disciples. Pay attention to the clothes and facial features of that person. When we return to the clan, you must sketch his portrait. His disciple Yang Woon was confused by that request. Then the elder explained him that was the leader of the heavenly demon sect. Then more important things quickly flashed through his mind. Even though they had formed an alliance, the celestial demon god sect was still a hostile force that the martial arts had faced off against continuously for hundreds of years. Such a person has infiltrated the royal palace, without any notice or news. This will definitely lead to a riot. The elder warned, "Don't be rude or anything. Otherwise you'll lose your hand like a joke." Yang Woon couldn't help but be disappointed with the actions of his predecessor. Could it be that he's wary of the demonic cult leader, one of the 17 masters of the orthodox sects? Kongtong lustrous sword Taoist Master Chung Su. He didn't bother to ask, because the elder would likely answer because he didn't want to get involved in the conflict between the demon sect and the Great Ming. While the two were talking via voice transmission, Yo Woon walked towards Ju Ti-yoon. Of course none of the eunuchs could block his path. In reality, after witnessing the general scene, Manager Lim was beheaded. They realized that they were nothing but small ants compared to him. The eunuchs, who were already shocked with fear when witnessing this scene, did not even think to the point of rebellion. Crown Prince Ju Ti-yoon's nose was still stuck to the ground and kept bleeding. His dignity as crown prince was damaged and he became even more angry to the point that he could not raise his head. Then when something spread this way, Ju Ti-yoon was startled and wanted to step back, but her limited strength did not allow. It was the head of General Manager Lim, and that crown prince had never come at the execution site. This was the first time he saw a human head being beheaded. Of course, that was a very important person, so he couldn't calm down. The smell of blood was so strong and horrifying, and the sounds of vomiting rang out as soon as the demonic cult leader walked in. He had gone through a terrible life. Life goes smoothly, and perhaps the male lead is the first person to hinder him. Sometimes to overcome fear, anger is the most effective medicine. He exclaimed, "Who are you, to dare standing in front of me? As long as I follow the plan, I will get everything but, including the position of crown prince. I can also depose that annoying holy king standing over there. But, What Ju Tae-yoon was saying had reached the ears of Ju Tae-geum, his half-brother, and even the eunuchs lying nearby were embarrassed. Because of his personality, his outspoken and not easy to control emotions, Yo-woon took 2 steps forward and came closer before looking at Ju Tae-yoon with cold eyes and replied, "Tongues that cannot be controlled should be cut off first. Should I thank you for what you and your sword are trying to highlight my sect? Your Highness the Crown Prince." Before he can release his anger towards the south, his body began to float in midair. When Yo-woon mentioned the force behind him, Crown Prince Ju Tae-yoon's eyes widened. Luckily he also knew, so it was time to pay the price. "No. What are you planning to do? I am the Crown Prince of Dai Min. How dare you do that to a member of the royal family? You bastard, do you know you are causing a big problem?" Yo-woon moved his right hand and broke his elbow before blurting out everything. In the grand plan that had been arranged by the person called Dao Kong Sect Master, a high-ranking member of Extreme Knife, that dead man has affirmed his credibility, because the demonic religion never dared to approach the edge of the southern bank of the Yellow River. However, a change happened and now Ju Tae-yoon is very angry. He swore that if he lost his arm, he would make all the demonic sects disappear from the Central Plains map. The bone in his elbow was broken and the Crown Prince could not stand the pain. Yo-woon was also bored looking at Ju Tae-yoon, an evil schemer, trying to win the throne, even though he knew he was weak. The eunuchs immediately became extremely uncomfortable when they heard Yo-woon's screams. "Prince!" They used swords to run to help. "Why do you dare to break your highness's hand?" No matter how scared they feel, their loyalty to the royal family is still much greater. 3. The eunuch angrily cast the upper wolf sword towards the demon sect leader. "Hold your mouth. While I was ignoring you and it seemed like you were also giving up your lives in vain." The moving body suddenly stopped. Not knowing what was happening when they see themselves, they become stiff like dolls and their faces turn pale. They all cried out in pain and then died in a strange position. It was killing a chicken with a buffalo knife. Ju Tae-yoon swallowed her saliva and wondered, why is it so different? Who the hell is that? Once you have overwhelming strength, you don't need to care what force the opponent comes from, even if it is official, martial arts, court or crown prince. While Ju Tae-yoon tried to use every word he could think of to threaten the leader, Yo-woon still absent-mindedly continued to break his other arm. In pain, the pain and fear of experiencing the feeling of each piece of penis protruding from his skin made his hot head calm down and said, "This king accidentally spoke. How could a prince break the agreement of the founder? Your Majesty, please forgive me." He knew that continuing those arrogant words would cause him to continue to be tortured. Yo-woon replied, "It would be such a pity if he continued to talk. If you talk like that, I'll cut off one arm." Just those words alone make the prince's spine chill, and Yo-woon is not one to mince words. However, the male lead suddenly felt the aura of not just one or two people but many experts entering inside. Ju Tae-yoon's body was thrown in a certain direction, because he wanted Ju Tae-geum to do this. Ju Tae-yoon fell to the floor. He no longer had the strength to stand up and vent his anger like that. "That's enough. As promised, I will forget about not dealing with your royal highness." Yo-woon shrugged and looked at Ju Tae-geum, then affirmed, "This prince can do whatever he wants." Before the firm words that were just given, Ju Tae-geum's face suddenly became dangerous. He looked at his beloved royal brother, making Ju Tae-yoon even more resentful. Ju Tae-geum said, "It's a pity to see your plan," then enthusiastic to carry it out. Now, he's so angry again. Should he admit defeat or not? That voice didn't have the slightest bit of worry. Rather, it was close to sarcasm. "Ju Tae-yoon," he replied. "That bastard Ju Tae-geum. Duke Lim died unexpectedly because of you. Even if there were witnesses, do you think your father would easily trust a young girl of the harem? Or the power would tilt in your favor?" The third princes sighed. When the situation became more and more unfavorable, the crown prince regretted his choice. Then he called out loudly, "Elder Kongtong, my second brother was too blind and ended up doing horrible things. I hope you don't get involved in this matter." Now even when he becomes a suspect, he still wants to do something to make himself a victim. And to even Taoist Master Chung Su was speechless. The situation has come to this and he still wants to pursue power to the end. O Yuan Shi Tianjun, Please save the price. If the doctors of the autopsy department do not, if you close your eyes to the current situation, you won't be able to climb to the position of crown prince. Then an obstructive voice rang out, making Ju Ti-yoon angry, wanting to sit up to see who that person was. However, this guy was too exhausted to do so, and now that he saw it, he would never have the courage to do it. So the leading figure of the Great Alliance has appeared. Followed by the emperor are many powerful subordinates, from literary mandarins, to military mandarins, to eunuchs, to the concubine. As was their habit, all the people working for the royal court quickly knelt down on the ground very respectfully. And no one dared to raise their eyes to look at the prince, whose name was so great. So, no matter where you are, you will not dare open your mouth to see your father coming. Ju Tae-geum quickly bowed. The second prince asked to pay his respects to His Majesty the Emperor of the Great Empire. Now all the military officials inside the hall knelt down before the solemn man in royal armor standing at the entrance. Yo Woon did not do that, and neither did the members of the demon sect. Because the sect leader originally had equal rights with the emperor. Seeing the emperor coming, he clenched his fists with determination. Yo Woon glared, frowned, and thought to himself, "The emperor is coming. Things are going to be very troublesome." Crown Prince Ju Ti-yoon looked towards the people behind the emperor, and he gradually fell into extreme despair and fear. The plan failed, and now there is about to be a rampage. The person wearing a shirt, the shiny red circle and gorgeous jewelry is the West Hall commandant, Yu Chung-eun. He is the person in charge of finances in the palace. To the right of the general are 3 eunuchs. The one wearing a navy blue uniform is Inner Branch Hall Commander Cotae Sik, an embroidered uniform guard leader commander Beek Ya Gi, and the person standing next to him who is radiating unique energy is embroidered uniform guard's strongest warrior northern military officer Jung Jo. Something that rarely happens, when all the leaders from the forces in the palace have gathered in the underground shrine. Despite the presence of the king, Yo Woon looks like still unusually calm. But the story will be very confusing. Ju Ti-yoon was still stunned at the sudden change in the situation. So he immediately ran to his father and cried, like a child, "No one stopped this action. It's just that in front of all the ministers." He looked a bit bored. "Your Majesty, please save me. The second brother is plotting to create betrayed. He wanted to kill me. General Manager Lim was killed by him. And I was tortured mentally and physically by him." Holy King Ju Tae-geum could not hide his anger when he heard the words of White change. The Crown Prince's fate change. When just now the Crown Prince had thrown away his status to beg for a way to live. But the eyes of the king, of a father attentively listening to his eldest son of her, yet filled with an unusual coldness. That icy cold gaze made Ju Ti-yoon feel confused. Her arm with a broken elbow sticking out, and her nose bleeding so brightly that it made her feel confused, giving him even more basis to paint the overall picture about the bloody tortures he had to go through, because he was the eldest prince and the only son of the deceased queen. The emperor always treat this guy with warmth and love. Ju Ti-yoon tried desperately to convince his father, but the look on his father's face made him freeze at that moment. "You still dared to be so cunning in your defense. And even colluded with the East Factory Admiral to cause trouble. Don't I know?" Although the Crown Prince has tried to win the support of many military officials, including General Manager Lim, making them his allies, you forget that in this palace, does all the supreme power lie in the hands of His Majesty Emperor Ju Tae-1? Or do you really think that in this world there is no place where His Majesty's eyes and ears cannot reach? When listening to His Majesty's orders, "Your Majesty," General Manager Cotae Sik looked at the military officials in the room and gave instructions. The old eunuch asked his servants to carry out the investigation according to His Majesty's orders. Ju Ti-yoon did not understand them, what they were talking about, especially the investigation they were talking about. But he soon found out, and tears continued to flow. Among the eunuchs of the Eastern Factory who were lying face down on the floor with their heads bowed, 5 eunuchs stood up and approached the emperor near the door. So the prince gradually felt his long-standing intention. Every guess finally came true. The master of the temple's main interior, Sim Hyam, together with the 4 brothers, We would like to pay our respects to the king. We have completed the investigation mission. The amazing thing is that all 5 eunuchs are members of the College of Cardinals. Ju Ti-yoon is too shocked to understand and his father is demanding a report. About half a year ago, when I started my duty to supervise the East factory. After 3 months, we noticed that the second prince often showed up. Entered Dong Tang, the government of Dong workshop. Because he was not a high-ranking member, so he could not gather full details about what happened. But he realized that Ju Ti-yoon had shaking hands with members from the Extreme Knife 6 martial arts is an undeniable fact. After the whole report was given, the emperor's voice turned cold. Just for the crown prince's position, he had the heart to massacre the palace guard soldiers. I am extremely disappointed. It was my mistake to make you like this. You should have been raised strictly like other princes. Knowing clearly the emperor's stubborn nature, any excuse was meaningless, especially after hearing the report. Ju Tae-1 ordered Cotae Sect to arrest all the reactionaries and put them in prison. Following the orders of the leader of the Dai Min, a satisfied smile appeared on the face of the northern military officer. Jung Jo. He felt humiliated when the factory arrested one of his members. And now the situation has turned around. So how can it be impossible to hide the satisfied smile on your lips? Life is so unpredictable. Guards wearing armor begin to appear and line up in the underground hall. The half-male, half-female crowd of horses, who had always been fearless, were now in chaos and did not fight back. The number of guards pouring in continuously was hard to count, and certainly one thing. If anyone resists, they will die immediately. The entire hall is almost filled with shadows. The number of people holding medical guards has reached 200 people. To arrest all the rebel eunuchs of Dongzong, give it to me. Northern military officer Jung Jo shouted freely because he had the king's protection. Anger mixed with excitement appeared on the faces of all the medical guards because they had been waiting for this day very much. Long time. A golden opportunity to repay the eunuchs for everything they have done to them in the past time. Governor Lim is dead and the king himself judges them. The eunuchs gradually realizing that the return of the factory will not only become a shame in history, but maybe from now on it will become history. Ju Tae-1 looked at his eldest son's face and became even more bored. So he directly requested that the crown prince be put in charge. According to the emperor's orders, the medical guards approached Ju Ti-yoon, who was kneeling on the floor in pain and kept explaining all sorts of things. He kept clarifying his position, one's own intelligence and all that. But the words of heaven cannot be taken back. Father, you cannot do this. That dirty bastard Ju Tae-gyeom colluded with martial arts members. Lam and, with his demonic teachings, he killed the general manager of the factory and made me become like this. Why do you treat me like that? He cried like rain and shouted, but the king even without even looking at him. His disappointment in his son reached its peak. A cold emperor must always maintain integrity between public and private and be ready to punish anyone. Violate, even if it is the person he loves the most. When the crown prince's screams gradually subsided, the emperor step by step entered the middle of the hall. My beloved son's affairs have been resolved. Now I need to deal with other matters. His father brought everyone here. Ju Tae-gyeom couldn't hide his shock. Following the emperor were the 2 generals and their attendants, the northern military officer. Jung Jo moved later, but that was not all. The eunuchs of the western factory and the cardinals rushed forward and lined up in 2 rows, surrounding the outside of the hall. How disrespectful! How dare you stand like that when you are being taken down? The general shouted angrily. When the king arrived at the underground hall of the royal temple, Ju Tae-gyeom and others immediately knelt down. However, some people did not do so. Ju Tae-1 temporarily did not pay attention to this matter, because he needed to solve the crown prince's problem first. When the king reached out his hand to signal to stop, the general who wanted to say something was silent. He wanted his son to explain clearly related to the incident. It was not my son who dragged them here, but only the people who helped me. Ju Tae-gyeom responded cautiously. After hearing his son's words, the king seemed to think thought for a moment. There was no way that martial artists could be so bold. He didn't know the end of the story here, but he saw the young man wearing a black robe, cruelly breaking the crown prince's arm. They dare to hurt my son. That's unforgivable. It's like slapping a father like Ju Tae-1 in the face. The king gently asked, Yo Woon, are you guys from a demon cult? Yo Woon continued to observe. Then he clasped his hands and said, I wanted to leave once everything was resolved. But as you know, things never go as planned. It's an honor to meet your majesty. The heads of organizations seem more angry than shocked like your majesty. The general manager of the factory, Yuk Chung-eun, an absolute master, came forward filled with anger. You bastards are arrogant and disrespectful to the king. Where are you going? Quickly tie me up and castrate me. He thought, I need to trust his power. Himself, he thought he had to let those disrespectful people know where this place was. But the great protector Ma Ra-Gyeom came out to protect the leader. No one noticed every move of that Dharma protector. And by the time they knew, it was too late. The old eunuchs must not disrespect our leader. The non-aggression pact was signed with equality and we do not work under the authority of others. Northern military officer, Jung Jo, quickly guessed the enemy's identity. People called Ma Ra-Gyeom the king of hell because you rule over life and death on the battlefield. Jung Jo drew his sword, unsheathed his sword and turned towards the great protector Ma Ra-Gyeom. With a cold look, which clearly said that he was not satisfied, Ma Ra-Gyeom exclaimed, Not only did you boldly draw your sword in front of the king, but you also had the audacity to threaten the mandarins in the pavilion. Don't you think you will be able to escape from here safely? As soon as he finished speaking, the royal guards started moving with their shields held in front of them. This was a military tactic, aimed at lowering enemy morale and reducing fighting spirit. However, it did not lower anyone's spirit but only shook the hearts of the shamanic cult members. Instantly, a self-moving sword drew a straight line on the ground, in front of the guards. Thanks to that, the elite soldiers had no choice but to stop. From the front, the left protector removed his disguise to reveal his red hair. If anyone dares to do anything to the leader, he must accept death as the end. A warning that spreads fear in his heart. The northern military officer sighed and thought to himself, with a few masters from the demon sect, it would be difficult to catch them. The current leader of the new demon sect does not have a very prominent reputation in the palace. But everyone in the martial arts world knows how strong the two guardians are. One of the people still kneeling suddenly stood up. It was a woman with a seductive body and waist-length hair. The mandarins know who she is and have been constant allies with Dai Min for 200 years. Even if they are martial arts masters, fighting her is unlikely to win. In front of her splendid beauty, Baek Ya-ji thought that this is the true power of the royal palace. Run Jang's fire, which in his mind was meant to attack the demon religion, was engulfing the eunuchs and royal guards. They are isolated from their allies. The fire circle stronger than the left guardian is waiting for Yo Woon's orders. Anyone who dares to threaten the leader of the demon god sect will burn him to ashes. Run Jang shouted towards the 300 soldiers surrounded by hot flames. In front of the beauty Run Jang's splendor, Cotae-6 said, Those damn devils who only know how to dance swords and release fire. Look closely at the power of the palace. As the fire swirled around her body looking like the reincarnation of the unicorn. Run Jang's fire, which according to Commander Cotae-6 thoughts was to attack the demon religion, is now entwining the eunuchs and royal guards. Everyone exudes blinded by fear. I thought that the palace guardian would eventually return to the royal palace. No one could believe their eyes when that expert who had lived for 200 years changed 180 degrees. Ignoring all the confusion and questions of why, Run Jang, the great elder of the demon god religion, raised her voice. Anyone who touched the leader of the church would let her know that a woman who was considered the strongest ally of the royal court had just aggressively threatened her. The king seemed to remember something, while trying to maintain a calm expression. The first time they met was the day he inherited the throne. Do you know what you are doing? The northern military officer shouted loudly with a red face. Old man, I cannot accept that the power that backs the emperor is on the side of the demon cult leader. Run Jang replied, I have seen you before, when you were a young soldier. But now you were strong enough to yell at a woman. Run Jang mocked Commander Baek Ya-ji severely. Have you forgotten that your newly sewn uniform turned to ash because of mocking me? Finished speaking, she immediately rushed forward, leaving the so-called commander of the military guards paralyzed and scared. He used to be a talented military guard and rose to a high-ranking position when he was only 34 years old. With his signature red armor, Run Jang hit Baek Ya-gi straight in the body, causing him to cough a few times. He is said to have the most martial arts talent among the guards. Yet he was suppressed quite easily. Cotae Sik rushed straight into another Mandarin's body and the two hugged each other and fell down hard against the wall. It is true that we should not underestimate the mysterious power that the Great Alliance has been hiding for many years. Even though we have used all our strength to defend ourselves, we still cannot resist Run Jang. Run Jang criticized Cotae Sik for being too young and green for his age. Maybe he should call her an old lady. Baek Ya-gi was furious and pulled out his sword to retaliate, even though his subordinates tried to warn him that he needed to rest first. Then think about it later. Baek Ya-gi shouted. The person who is supposed to protect the emperor but protects the demon religion is truly treasonous. I will use this chunjun bestowed upon me by the former emperor to punish you. The chunjun, that's the famous sword made by a master artisan in the Chu kingdom. I never thought I'd see that sword with my own two eyes. First Grade Supreme, do you remember the emperor? Are you very interested in martial arts? Sometimes you bring the martial artists in the palace here to compete with you. I also always bring this sword with me. Baek Ya-gi continued to speak. Now you say I'm still just a young kid but now strong enough to use this sword to kill you. Run Jang is an extremely loyal person, having spent 200 years in the royal mausoleum. Even though they no matter how many tricks he plays, he cannot completely convince her. That is Baek Ya-gi's true purpose. He wants to remind her of the memories and loyalty she must show to the Great Lord. Baek Ya-gi jumped forward and attacked Run Jang, who was standing in front of Yo Woon. The splendid sword was emitting colorful energy while attracting countless rays of light in the air. All of them contained the intention to kill Run Jang. The attack he executed vertically with the idea of cutting her into two pieces. The energy that the sword emitted seemed familiar to the Great Elder. However, she knew that she could not leave her position at this time to protect the leader. Use this method to block that move. But all the moves up to this point are not fake. When Baek Ya-gi approached, he ignored all the fire because he had enough air to protect his body. Avoiding that heat, he chose the right moment and then held both hands tightly and slashed strongly as if to put pressure on him. Spears fell around. Run Jang used his experience to catch the sword covered in Baek Ya-gi's energy. Baek Ya-gi exclaimed, "You actually stopped it with your bare hands. That's really strange. It will be a difficult fight, because he has competed several times before but has never been able to defeat her. First Grade Supreme, don't you remember this move? Because your majesty the king created it and how you perfected it." Baek Ya-gi's goal is something different, he said as he used his kai to push the sword. By showing it to Run Jang, he wanted to make her remember the loyalty she had to the royal family. At that very moment, the sound of breaking water rang out, causing Commander Baek's beaming face to suddenly deform. The gift from His Majesty, the precious sword of noble lineage, which he treasured more than his own life, was broken. As he looked at the pieces of the sword falling to the ground, Baek Ya-gi's eyes were filled with despair. His heart was numb. The guardian spell of the demon sect also praised and expressed his feelings. "You are now just like Baek Ya-gi. Oh, what a pity. Why is it so fragile, and I don't understand either. You keep forcing me to remember something. Don't make fun of my memories and force me. From the moment I was born until now, I have always lived for the religion and only stayed at the royal mausoleum to protect the things of the religion. After all, what is the reason to betray?" Over the past 200 years, she had to endure physical and mental torture and tormenting loneliness as she witnessed the elders of the demonic cult die without a place to bury. And until she learned Yo Woon's identity, and until she met the foolish young man Hyo Bong, the desire to live like a 20-year-old girl arose. Baek Ya-gi did not know where Run Jang belonged. The demon god was angry and stabbed her in the face. The blood that spewed out also made everyone scared. The person who was most worried was Hyo Bong, the leader's younger brother. Fortunately, a certain man, a criminal, stopped him because this was too much. which made Run Jiang quite surprised. Because she didn't even know who that person was. She almost used 2 fingers to blind Beek Ya Ji. It's true that there have always been variables since Yo Woon revealed his identity. It can be considered that this is also one of the variables that he never considered. His Majesty the Emperor is watching. Everyone please gather your energy for me. The words just transmitted are from the Maelstrom Sword Emperor, Lim Gyu Hua, the only bodyguard of the Emperor. After stopping the senseless things that just happened, he ran over and knelt down to pay respects to Ju Tae-1. Please forgive me, Your Majesty. I stood and watched as the Emperor ordered. But I had to stand up because I was afraid things would get more dangerous. I was also about to convey the news to you. The king is still indifferent to his close servant. Lim Gyu Hua's actions were too fast, and only when his face was revealed did everyone know how long that person had been here. In fact, everyone knows who the emperor's bodyguards are in the palace. But everyone doesn't know their specific background. Cotae Sect turned to ask the subordinate in the back for information, but he just shook his head and said, I don't know who he is. I've never met him before. In addition, that guy also told Cotae Sect that when he summoned the soldiers, Lim Gyu Hua was completely missing. That must mean that he disguised himself to infiltrate this place. What a strange day, even living in the palace. It is rare to meet Run Jiang and Lim Gyu Hua. Run Jiang is also a bit confused and suspicious. Although he has met her before, his strength seems to have increased significantly compared to the previous day. In such a chaotic atmosphere, the king spoke up again and asked, What is Yo Woon? Is he a ghost? If the beginning of a story is too smooth, it is a warning sign for a dangerous hero. I am very grateful for helping the Holy King and will not ask why I helped him do what he did. What? And as for the first grade supreme, it turns out that I am the only one who knows that you are a member of the demon religion. So Beek Ya Ji did not know and was disrespectful. I hope you will forgive. For the king's words, everyone here rolled their eyes. It was a secret that was not easy to reveal and not easy to accept. Ju Tae-1, whom they respected the most, admitted this, but to believe it right away was a bit difficult. If this is true, then the unicorn blood and unicorn core belong to the demon god religion, not the royal palace. The emperor's voice gradually spoke up. This place is the royal palace, and the night the inviolable covenant does not allow the cult leader to infiltrate and cause chaos like this. If the king asks Yo Woon to take responsibility for his actions, then he has no reason to reject this. There, Yo Woon spoke up. If you feel uncomfortable, then please forgive me. But we really want to clear up the misunderstanding. Before the leader could finish his sentence, Ju Tae-1 stopped him and changed the story about martial arts. He once knew that martial artists would determine mistakes and win or lose by comparing strength. Is it right to call it the law of the gypsies? Regardless of the reason, you arbitrarily infiltrated the palace, harmed my subordinates and broke the arm of your highness the king. With these crimes alone, I can charge you with violating the non-aggression pact between mandarins and martial arts. Although you have offended the Great Alliance, I also respect the laws of martial arts very much. After saying that, Ju Tae-1 asked Lim Gyu Hua to stand up, as if he wanted this defender to do something. This is my defender. If you defeat him, then this will be as if nothing happened. The whole atmosphere, their surroundings changed according to the movements of Lim Gyu Hua. A handsome young man, but at first glance he looked like a eunuch and was also beautiful enough to be considered a woman. I am the bodyguard of His Majesty the Emperor. I'm very pleased to compete with the demon cult leader. It sounds terrible, so Yo Woon is quite surprised. Up to now no one has dared to solicit and ask for a one-on-one fight with you. Lim Gyu Hua clasped his hands respectfully with the leader of the demon sect with a very confident expression. Ju Tae-1 leisurely looked at the leader of the demon sect and then clasped his hands behind his back and said, I will make an appointment between martial arts and non-aggression between the demon sect and the gods. And the royal court. Yo Woon frowned at his words, wanting to amend the treaty. So this was the king's true goal. He knew he would accept responsibility but did not expect this old man to demanding so much. You have to be able to be loyal to the Great Alliance regardless of whether there is a treaty or not. Right? Ju Tae-1 looked down at a person still bowing his head. It was none other than Taoist Master Chung Su and the disciples. These people are longtime messengers of the righteous sect. They still choose to bow their heads to show that they do not know about what is happening and do not want to participate. The elders just want to waiting for the situation to be quickly resolved. He was suddenly asked and now he didn't know what to do. The emperor's question was too sensitive to answer. These things always happen when demonic cults appear now. If we can't defeat this guardian, you want the demon cult to become a servant of the empire and not be considered a member of the treaty anymore. Right. To Elder Kongtong, who is facing a dilemma. Yo Woon's words are like his savior. Even if an alliance is established between martial arts and magic, they will still return to a hostile relationship when they achieved their goal. Yet in front of the king, Yo Woon was helping a member of the sect. He couldn't help but admire him very much. What the sect leader is doing is away, but the demon sect respects the alliance agreement with the main martial arts sect. If that happens, the king will certainly try to bring the entire martial arts under his control. Ju Tae-1 expressed regret when he could not control Taoist Master Chung Su. The demon religion made great achievements at the time of founding the country. His Majesty the Emperor also had the goodwill to sign an inviolable treaty to recognize your freedom. But that's just a favor and you see it as a favor. The current treaty between the martial arts and the empire has caused too much disturbance to the peace of the palace. So you don't think about it. Must pay the price? Yo Woon thought to himself. This old man has enough arguments but only revolves around one conclusion. Which is that when the sect leader loses in a fight, he will definitely return to being a disciple for the Great Alliance. Even Ma Ra Giam, the Great Protector, was confused and thought how clever he wanted to take advantage of this situation to undermine the sacrosanct relationship between mandarins and martial artists. While the whole Dharma Protector is wondering what to do, the Great Elder has transmitted a voice request to stop this game immediately. She firmly believes that Ju Tae-1 has a basis and is dreaming about winning after the competition. Ren Yung doesn't know everything because she was always in the royal mausoleum. But she heard that there was not a single person in the martial arts world who did not know the name Lim Gu Hua. Ma Ra Giam widened her eyes after realizing the sudden reputation of her guardian. Appears. He knows where he heard this name. That's right, the title Maelstrom Sword Emperor. Lim Gu Hua was famous decades ago. He was once one of 5 great masters in the Central Plains and known as the Sword Emperor. Are not only considered a martial arts star but also a legendary swordmaster. Previously, when he was only 20 years old, Lim Gu Hua stirred up the world. In a fight, he defeated the 5 great masters of swords and many masters predicted that Lim Gu Hua would be the #1 master in the Central Plains. But the Great Protector heard that he only worked in the martial arts for 1 year and disappeared after that. But in the past more than 90 years ago. So that means that eunuch was an old monster over 120 years old. Even if he had undergone reincarnation or biting a pill, life-extending medicine like Bak Tu Thien cannot overcome the law of time. Martial arts are based on the ideology of winning as king and losing as enemy. Ju Tae-1 wants to take advantage of the power to earn the sword Lim Gu Hua to bring the magic spear back under siege. If Yo Woon refuses, it means he is admitting that he and his subordinates cannot defeat the king's guard. Before answering honestly specifically, the demon sect leader stepped forward. Then he threw up his cape to show that, "What the hell are you afraid of punching?" All the masters in the Great Alliance were surprised. Because they were being attacked. The majesty of the leader of the 100.000 Great Mountains shook. The aura was a bit hazy. Too chaotic, causing all the eunuchs to be knocked back dozens of meters. Even Ju Tae-1, who was well protected thanks to Co Tae-Sik and Baekya Gi, got a little involved. Now, that sinister old man understands, but it's not clear what Yo Woon is plotting. In fact, his instructions were a little powerful. But he also wanted to create a vast space. The martial arts training area is a bit cramped, so I'm taking the liberty of allowing everyone to retreat. It's all for your majesty's safety. Please forgive me. Lim Gu Hua, who is considered the strongest, a master of transformation, immediately realized that something was wrong and said, "The master is very kind, but protecting your majesty's safety is my duty." That guy pulled the sword from his belt and slashed it straight without warning Yo Woon. He said, "Protecting your majesty's safety is my duty. Please focus on the conflict. Let's win or lose right now." Lim Gyu-hwa, who was standing proudly in the moment, spoke with an urgent voice. The sword moved flexibly like a whip, creating invisible waves in the air. Perhaps the Sword Emperor wanted to end it quickly because he realized that Yo Woon was a very strong person. The weapon in that eunuch's hand seemed to magically transform and bend, snaking around weak positions. Yo Woon attack point. But it's all meaningless to a sect leader who stands at the pinnacle of martial arts and is almost the strongest among all the main and evil factions. Lim Gyu-hwa tried to get closer to make Yo Woon cower, giving everyone the idea that the cult leader was being abused. Could not deny this level. But with each slash he realized that he was hitting the ball, not the person. Transmutation means that when performing this technique, even though the knees are not there and the legs are not moving, the evasion speed is very fast. It was a natural thing, and Yo Woon had the heavenly demon sword in his hand. Blinking at his back, he responded with a fatal slash. Of course he couldn't help but know that the black fire sword in his hand was an invisible sword. The royal palace could spread a rumor saying that they had the power, causing the demon cult to submit. This is the scenario Ju Tae Won drew when the cult leader lost. A clear bet when the king poured all his capital into the battle. Both masters were creating a scene of stabbing, extremely variable slashing at the ultimate level, even when it was impossible to avoid due to the transformation technique and the heavenly demon sword. Lim Gyu-hwa chose to attack directly. His sword fluttered and touched the heavenly demon. The sword creates dazzling flames. The royal guardian is the first general manager of the Eastern Workshop. He is very strong even before absorbing the unicorn blood. The evidence shows that this guy is still never wanted to use what he thought was his trump card. A sword shield cast from a wolf sword. Loud explosions shook the last basement, where treasures were buried, misunderstanding that it was mine. With each strike, a different sword wave pattern is formed and it makes the black fire unable to penetrate the range. The two kept jumping here, disappearing there, then rushing at each other like wild animals. No one could see how they moved, because it was so fast and so perfect. It was necessary to reconsider the fighting space because perhaps this place is not enough to make two experts show their full strength. Then the end was gradually coming to an end when Yo Woon directly attacked the weak points that he asked NANO to analyze in a split second. The heavenly wolf sword was supposed to become stronger with each attack but was penetrated. Lim Gyu-hwa's eyes momentarily became worried. He had never been like this before. Finally, an explosion rang out, causing all martial arts officials, martial artists, and magicians to turn tail and run away from the influence. No one knows what the current situation is because the rising smoke obscures the view. General Manager Co Tae Sik almost fell to the ground, wondering if this was really a fight between humans or not. On the demon sect's side, they lamented their leader. He was too classy, too strong and too sharp. Run Jiang began to recognize the ancient aura inside if there was something familiar. The sweat on her forehead would also flow down. An unexpected turn of events from Lim Gyu-hwa, one of the martial arts masters in the Central Highlands. Right at that moment, that guy brought out his final power. The smoke and dust gradually disappeared, revealing Yo Woon standing majestically on one side, and on the other side the royal guard was grimacing. His body grew red scales like a demonic great elder. Then the sound of grinding teeth rang out, because what Yo Woon showed was beyond expectations. Unlike the inner palace guardian who kept the unicorn blood for 200 years, Lim Gyu-hwa was free to go outside and absorbing all the best things to protect His Majesty's safety. To achieve this success, the royal palace has sacrificed so many eunuchs. Yo Woon sees that fighting is not losing. Surely you need to be more serious. Surely even the royal palace doesn't know that the male lead has absorbed the unicorn core. This is extremely important, and in the past it belonged to the demon god religion. As if he was absorbed in the battle, Lim Gyu-hwa sobbed and waited for all the things Yo Woon would show next. He was very happy, but maybe he regretted it, and maybe it was also a pity for his long-cultivated talent. For up to 90 years, heavenly demonic energy began to appear around the body of the cult leader. It was a type of aura that only the leader of the demonic cult had the honor of receiving. This was just energy. The greed of the dragon. An ancient beast whose horn was cut off by the devil himself, of course. With that infinite greed, the aura is coveting Lim Gu Hua. It's not that I crave the eunuch's body. It's just that everyone will be affected by unicorn blood. After a while of suppressing the huge power in front of them, Lim Gu Hua realized that he was too small, and initially said looking for a true rival. But now he may need to retract that sentence. As Yo Woon now smiles evilly and says, "You said I was a rival, right?" Yo Woon smiled brightly and continued, "Let's see how much Lim Gu Hua can endure."